Quick tips for friends and family who are confused by our political system. I've been talking to a lot of you guys. You've been coming to me, and you don't get a lot of the stuff. I didn't for a really long time. I don't think it's your fault. I feel like we're not taught about it well enough in school. So here's some quick tips for you. A lot of people feel like their vote is going to do nothing. And fair enough, I can understand that feeling, but that's bullshit. There's a lot your vote can do. On election day, you're going to be handed two pieces of paper, a little one and a big one. The little one is all about finding someone to represent your electorate. The big one doesn't matter what electorate you come from. It's all about the state or the territory. This is where I think there's a lot of power, right? If you live in a safe seat, so if you live in a seat that's kind of everyone's going to vote Labor or Liberal or whatever, and you can feel like, oh, my vote doesn't really do anything. Well, this paper doesn't. This vote has nothing to do with that electorate. All those lines are taken away. So it's about all across your state or territory. My grandmother, she voted in a very safe seat on one side of politics. You know, they all felt this way. She voted the other way in the Senate, and that person actually got in last election. So there's a lot of power in that. What does the Senate do? Okay, so basically you've got two houses. The first house makes the laws, the second house reviews them. You can't get a law passed until the second house has given you the tick. So you want people in this big house, this one where there's a bit of power, to be, looking over stuff. There are quality control. If we've got whoever's in government, a lot of us feel like whoever's going to get in government is going to be shit. Well, that other house is really important for making sure that we don't get crappy laws being pumped through into our country and like possibly doing some damage. So the Senate is a place where they can review the laws. It's called the House of Review, and if they don't like it, they send it back and say, here's some notes, do some more work on it. There's a lot of power in that, so use your Senate vote wisely. In terms of your first little one, if you are that person that lives in a safe seat and goes, well, it's going to go to these guys or it's going to go to these guys, we've got this thing in our country called preference voting, which I'm not going to get into too much because it confuses everyone. It confuses the shit out of most people. But basically, there's all these names on that little list, and you have to fill them all out from who you like most to who you like least. But the one thing you really need to understand is in most electorates, in your little electorate, it's a two-horse race. Okay, so in most seats, it's kind of Labor versus Liberal. In some, it's Labor versus an independent or Liberal versus an independent. In mine, it's Labor versus the Greens. But basically, it's always going to be two people who are likely to get elected. So as long as you kind of find out who those two people are, it really doesn't matter where on the list you put them. As long as you work out of these two who you want most, and you put that one above that one. I say don't put them up the top because they're probably the two big parties that don't need your support and you might not even like them to begin with. I say you look at some of the other parties, some of the independents, especially some of the people who are, promoting one idea. And if you care about that idea or if one of these people represents you better, put them up the top, but just make sure that you know which order those two from the two-horse race are in. Because at the end of the day, with preferential voting, if your first guy doesn't get in, then his votes or her votes get put to the next group. I know that sounds confusing, but the first vote kind of sends a message that this is what you care about. Because your first preference votes get looked at after the election, and they can see, well, there's a large portion of my electorate that actually cares about this stuff. But if you kind of give away your votes to the two main parties, we're always going to have this two-party bullshit system. Anyway, and that person or that party that gets your first vote on the list before it gets broken down, they get, I think it's like $2.50 for the next elections campaign. And the two main parties, they have a lot of money. So give that $2.50 to someone more, more needy. It's good for democracy to have more than two parties friggin' controlling this country. That's all I got. I know that was long-winded, and I'm not a very concise human being, but have fun on election day and vote with your values, because that's the only real message that's how you're going to use your power best.